Well, hello there and welcome back to Dukascopy TV. I'm Dermott and today we're going to have a look at the importance of independence for central banks and risks countries face when their independence of central banks is actually threatened. Well, Michel, welcome back to the studio.
Hello, Doireann.
So, Michel, in terms of independence for central banks, why is independence for central banks so very important?
Well, central banks strive for the stability of the currency. We can think of the currency as having two values. One, which is the intrinsic value, and that's basically the inflation, the purchasing power of the currency in a country of where it is. And the other is the external value. So some central banks, like the Swiss National Bank, now target the external value, but some others, and that's the case of the Bank of Japan, they are targeting the intrinsic value, i.e. they want actually more inflation. They want to end the period of deflation in Japan. And so there's been tremendous pressure by the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to actually put somebody to change the head at the helm of the central bank and put somebody who would be more keen to go and reach the goals of the government, i.e. to prop growth.
And if the Bank of Japan actually keeps losing its independence, what risks could Japan be facing?
Well, the risk is one of escalating inflation and loss of control. I mean, everyone now, virtually all central banks in the world are actually looking for weaker currencies. This is why we talk about some currency war and also potentially a bit more inflation. But the risk is that if markets at some point fear that there is too much influence by the government onto the central bank, then at some point inflation expectation might spiral up, and this could trigger to this effect which we call catch-up inflation. Catch-up, not catching up, but catch-up, the tomato thing that you put on your hamburgers. And the idea being that when you shake a bottle of ketchup, it doesn't come out of the bottle. Yeah. And then you keep on shaking, you keep on pressing the central bank to print money, and suddenly inflation expectations start rising and pick up, and then you get into a vicious circle. And each time we've had these examples, Brazil in the 90s, Zimbabwe, Hungary, and going back also further back in 1923 in Germany, all these were examples where the central bank lost its independence and the government told the central bank what to do, i.e. print money excessively, and that's what triggered hyperinflation.
And so other than the Bank of Japan, what other central banks should we be kind of concerned about in terms of losing their independence?
Yeah. Well, there's an obvious case in point, which is the Swiss National Bank. The Swiss National Bank, like the Bank of Japan, has got the same problem. It has to cope with a very strong currency because there are some fears of deflation. Deflation actually exists in Japan, and it's threatening in Switzerland. So clearly there has been, prior to the Swiss National Bank introducing a ceiling, a cap on the Swiss franc against the euro, there were some influence of the politicians onto the central bank and some fear that it might lose independence there. Now that there is some relief for the Swiss National Bank and the Swiss franc has weakened somewhat against the euro, these fears are gone. But they could come back should there be another wave of fear that there's a debt crisis in the euro and we go back to reaching the ceiling of 120. So there could be some talk again that some pressure on the Swiss National Bank to do more to get these fears of deflation away.
Well, Michel, thank you very much for coming back into the studio and sharing your views on this with us today.
Thank you, Doireann.
Well, viewers, I hope you enjoyed this interview, and don't forget to check out our other interviews with Michel on the Dukascopy website. But for now, goodbye.